You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Go check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV app as well. You can get all the top stories in one place, streaming 24/7 for you over at Locked On Sports Today, again, on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. And thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. For your second listen, it's SEC Media Day, so you got to go check out Chris Gordy and Locked On SEC all week long. He's going to have great insight and intel for you about what's happening. And if you missed the Jackson Arnold interview that he did from the Manning Passing Academy just a couple weeks ago, Chris Gordy got to sit down with Jackson Arnold and talk through some of those things that are big questions. So go check that out. Locked On SEC, search Jackson Arnold on wherever you get your podcasts. So the size is going to matter. Going into the SEC, we know the guys up front, both offensive line, defensive line, have to have the size to be able to keep up down in, down out, game to game. And it looks like Oklahoma's trending in a very, very positive direction on that, Jay.
Yeah, the roster's updated over the weekend, and so we got to see some of the offensive line and defensive line players. I mean, every position got updated. Not an official like PDF that's gone out for the fall, but they're putting in new information. And when you start to see some of these sizes grow, like let's start off strictly here on the defensive line, right? I think that's the one that in the offensive line, the two positions that we were truly concerned about, right? Wondering what it's going to look like. Well, coming in, we'll have two guys over 300 and about 20 pounds, roughly, about 319 over. Damonic Williams as well as JonTerry. They're both clocking in at 319 and 323, respectfully. That may get adjusted as soon as fall ball hits when they have that final weigh-in or right before they start working out and the OU DNA show comes back. You also see Jaden Jackson's at the 300 range. David Stone's right there underneath at 294. Grayson Halton's at 291, so he's just 9 pounds from 300. Ashton Champ Sanders is at 295. Marcus Strong is at 290. Devon Sears at 295. So you got a lot of dudes that are thick on that defensive line, and that's what you need going into the SEC. I am stoked to see that, but when I saw these edges, oh boy. These edges, 4 technique, 3 technique guys from Caden Woolard, who's sitting at about just under 260 at 259. Nigel Smith, 267. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, especially looking at this roster, man. That got your boys' attention. Got me excited.
Yeah, and I like that the edge guys aren't too big. I think in the past couple of years, they were trying to push them up towards that 270, 280 pound range, kind of the Rondo Bothroyd. And they lost a little bit of their explosiveness, and now they kind of slimmed back to that 260 to 265 range. I think Ethan Downs, where he's at, is a perfect size for him, and it's going to allow him to keep that explosiveness. On the offensive line, dude, Fabechi Wiwu coming in at 339, basically 340 at right guard. You might argue that's a little too much, but he's got the size, and he's going to bring it. And I think being able to sandwich him, be one slice of the bread between Branson Hickman and whoever plays left guard. I think that's really, really big because, okay, Hickman's not the biggest dude. He's 301, still got decent size for center, but it's not like last year where we're coming in with a guy like Savion Byrd, who's maybe 280 playing guard. Your interior is a lot more stacked.
Yeah, and
he's got a lot more size to him.
Right. Heath Uzeda comes in there at 318, right? 6'5", 318. And he's one that we've been talking about for a bit. He's younger and, he's one that's been working his way up. Gary and Hatchett coming in at 312, at 6'5" as well. So, yeah, that interior, Eugene Brooks, BJ Brooks, he's over here at 336. Him and Fabechi on the right side is just monstrous in size. We're going to be able to have a nice thick interior with an agile exterior on the left and right tackle. It's going to be very helpful for our run game. Man, imagine a GT counter with big old Fabechi Wiwu coming right at you full steam ahead because he's got some quickness to him. And then you can't forget about Eddie Pierre-Louis, who runs like a 12.5 in the 100 at his size. He's down to 305. So he's gotten nimble and he's getting stronger. So basically, Schmitty is cutting the bad weight off of him, building him back up. the beauty of it is that, as you mentioned, they're gaining this weight, but they're not really losing most of their mobility, which is the one thing that's most important with the way Schmidt does things. He wants to make sure that you have that mobility and agility at the same time as the size. And so he's very meticulous about that portion of it. Sooner fans are going to love that.
Yeah, it's really intriguing to see some of the true freshmen already with really good size to them, and Daniel Akinkumi, Josh Isosa, Isaiah Autry, like all guys north of 310 already as true freshmen. So they're not likely going to play a whole lot this year. Although a guy like Autry, I've heard some really, really positive things from him from spring ball. It wouldn't surprise me to see him get some looks, but I think you're going to see these guys redshirt this year. But man, 2 full years in the Schmidt program going into 2025, those guys could be significant players for you along the offensive line if they continue to develop just the technical aspects of their game. I mean, it's really encouraging just to see where these guys are and the work that they've put in. Going back to the defensive side, we can talk Jaden Jackson. I mean, that's my guy. I can talk him all day long, but 6'2", 300, that's going to be a really, really important piece to you in your 3 deep at defensive tackle, at nose tackle, because he can play either one of those positions. So, if you want, in your goal line situations, when you're going to be able to run out JonTerry at the nose and then Damonic Williams and Jaden Jackson on either side of him, and you've got 300 pounders right there in the middle. And then what else do you want to do? You can do whatever you want because you've got the middle locked down with 3 guys that are going to be very, very significant. There's going to be big time pieces that's going to make it really difficult for offensive linemen to move. We already saw last year how much a guy like JonTerry can affect the things in the middle. Well, now you've got a group of those guys that can affect those things. One other notable, Reggie Powers, a true freshman. That dude, he looks like he could go off to WWE right now and be a big time player in NXT. And I mean, he looks like Trick Williams. Like he's got that. Sorry, this is nerding out for some of our WWE fans. For those of you who aren't WWE fans, I'm sorry. But Reggie Powers, he's got everything. Like he's got the size, he's got the build. He's going to be a physical player. I mean, it's very impressive to see what that safety room has done this offseason too.
Yeah, he has put on, it's funny because he came in pretty sizey already, right? He came in at 17 years old, roughly almost 220 pounds, right? You don't really hear that for a dude roughly about 6 feet tall at 220 pounds as a freshman, right? 17 years old. Just turned 18 this summer, by the way. Mm-hmm. So he is still nice and young, and he comes in with that size. He's dropped some. They've been trying to get him down because they want to keep him agile. So he's roughly like the 208, 209 range right now, and still looking chiseled, right? Between him, Jeremiah Newcomb, I've heard really good things about him, even though he's not the siziest guy, but he looks like he's a creative player. He looks completely chiseled out. And then Boganowski coming in like 221 pounds as well. That safety room is going to be nasty. And so, yeah, we had a deep dive into them next time we talk about the roster. But as these get updated, something to be excited about. But one thing I looked at too, PJ Adebawore. We've been waiting for this 5-star plus to really show up. I mean, the big thing with him is it's always been in his head. He just thinks a little bit too much. He just doesn't react like he should, as naturally gifted as he is. 251. And I know BV wants him at the 260 range, and it sounds like he is creeping that direction. And so you get him at the 260, like an Ethan Downs, who's 265 right now, Caden Woolard, who's at 260, and then Art Mason Thomas maintaining his 240, 250 range. Yeah, we're going to have some terrorists out there at the edge that's going to be doing some damage going into SEC.
Yeah, the length is there. The size is there. Now it's just a matter of keeping some of these guys healthy and developing. For a guy like PJ, I think you're right. It's just get out there and just play football. Don't try to think too much. I hope they really just try to get him in there on some pass rush downs. I don't think he's going to play, north of 300 snaps this year. I could see somewhere around 200 just because they are deep. They have Ethan Downs and Caden Woolard and R. Mason Thomas. And I don't think that that's a slight against PJ. It's just, it takes time to get a full grasp of all of your responsibilities as a defensive end. But a guy like R. Mason Thomas, I mean, that's a dude that can bring the juice. If he can just stay healthy, he's got the size, he's got the speed, the athleticism to really, really be a difference maker off the edge for you. Another guy that could be a difference maker for this defensive line, ESPN called him a sleeper for 2024. Who is it? We'll talk about that next, coming up here on Locked On Sooners. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the win is also what keeps your ride or die alive. Go to ebaymotors.com, where they have over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers.